Hello, welcome back to Equal Time Soccer. We're live from warm St. Paul indoors and cold Bemidji outdoors. I'm Mark Pavratsky. I'm here with Matt, who can't get enough of outdoor Bemidji soccer, it seems. And also we looped in someone in the Minnesota soccer family because her family is playing in this game. Hannah Cade is here to join us. Thank you for joining us, Hannah.
Of course, thanks for having me.
It feels like the weather app says -1 in Bemidji. Is it true?
Yeah, every bit of
it. So it says it's 14, but feels like -1. So, and I do have the other semifinal up in the corner of my screen, and it's still 0-0. So, I mean, that is so cold, especially for this early in the year. Like, we are not accustomed to it. So, I mean, I know Matt has snow pants on and you guys are geared up. How do you begin to make this close to a regular game for yourself? Like, what do you do?
Honestly, you got to stay warm during warm-ups and just kind of pray that you keep warm. But I personally have never played a game in this cold. I've done training, but then again, I was bundled up in leggings and pants and socks and Under Armours up the wazoo, so I just hope they can stay warm.
Well, and when you talk to your sister, Maggie, right?
Yep.
Hannah, we've interviewed Hannah before. She plays in Iceland. Iceland is obviously much more temperate than this, I would imagine, and you're not playing in these weeks because you're home.
Yep.
Well, when you talk, BSU played the NSI tournament game here last year, and there was snow on the ground. Maybe it wasn't this cold, although I remember it being very cold. When you talk to her, like, what are the players even doing to prepare? Are they just layering up? Are they adding layers? Is there any other, like, literal, like, hand warmer strategy? Like, what's the strategy the players are using?
I think they kind of do all of the above, and I know my sister always will play in shorts because we just grew up that way, and she'll put Vaseline on her legs to keep all the heat in, and she just goes out all Vaseline up.
She wears no tights?
Correct.
Oh my God. Honestly, that's dangerous. We don't recommend that. We recommend tights. We recommend leggings.
Yeah. So watching the last game, so I watched the game that Bemidji just won against Mankato, which was a huge game. A perfect display of why it's a good rivalry, because Mankato plays really intentionally, like, fiery with press, and you know, if you're able to withhold it like Bemidji did, they were able to hold up and play through it. But they're playing at home again today. I know, like, the football team will be there. But I mean, talk about it must be when you're playing on turf like this, and I don't know if you can hear. How does the ball play differently? Because I asked Allie Smith of Bemidji about that. Like, the turf itself must harden, so it's like no longer rubbery. I don't know how the ball must bounce different, right? Or how does it affect your play?
Yeah, I mean, the ground's frozen, so you running on it just feels not great in the first place, and then the bounces, you're exactly right. They just take such strange, odd bounces, and if it's the first one to break the ice, then it just kind of drops flat. Otherwise, it's bouncing all over and out of bounds, and it's just not as fun.
Yeah, well, obviously PKs may be in the cards. Last year, Bemidji beat Emporia, who they're facing today, 1-0 last year in the tournament. So that was a heartbreaking loss. I watched the post-match interview, which God bless them for doing it from Emporia, and it was brutal because it was like, you know, a really good season for them, and literally were like emotional losing the game. I'm wondering for you in like postseason runs or having a rival like that, like, how much does that actually add to it, or is that just something we talk about, the fact that they lost to Bemidji last year, you know, for Emporia? Does that matter, or is it just like us trying to find something to talk about?
I think it definitely, I know, having been in similar situations, it definitely plays a role in your mentality going into it. Like, you have that extra motivation to beat this team that had ended your season the previous year. So I'm sure today is going to be a very, very, very hard-fought physical game.
And I think the one thing that sticks out to me for Bemidji State is, in the equal time era, in our time covering the NSIC, the dynamic has always been that Mankato is the team that's been through tournament runs. They're the ones that have tournament play experience. You know, when they beat Bemidji on their home turf for the NSIC tournament championship last year, it sort of seemed to fall into that same play of Bemidji can win regular season games, but Mankato has so much tournament experience. And then last year Bemidji won up them and went further on the run. This year they beat Mankato, Minnesota State directly in the tournament. And I just think, do all of those reps start to matter where you see Bemidji and they're able to just be like, we're not shook playing in the Sweet 16 anymore. We're not shook playing, in the advanced rounds of the NCAA tournament, because the truth is, as you said, Mark, they play teams like this now. This is not new for them. And so it really gets you excited thinking about, well, if they're able to win games like this in, brutal Planet Hoth type conditions, then that really does open the door, because they're already in the Sweet 16. If they show the potential to do more than that, that's just such a fun, exciting thing to think about, is maybe they are over that hump now. Maybe they have gone through those growing pains, because playing in these deep tournament runs is so much pressure. You can't even imagine having to go to Grand Valley State, having to go to Central Missouri, these powerhouses that win literal national championships. And so it's fun to be able to see them in these games. It's just wild.
Yeah, well, they have, due to COVID and, these players would have been impactful and made records anyway, but due to the COVID year, they have the 4 players who played the most games in the history of Bemidji State, which is Wendt, Becker, Dahl, and then Allie Smith. And then they have, people who are, Wendt is about to be first in goals. Allie Smith is first in assists. Erin Becker is 8th in goals. She's taken 8 PKs and made 8, so it's like they made their first NCAA tournament was just in 2017. So for these seniors, like for the super seniors and for Allie Smith, who was there the first year in 2017, it's like, they don't know any different. They make it most of the time, and now they make runs. So it's, this is as deep as they've ever gone, and they're hitting their stride at the right time, because they weren't actually scoring a lot early, and they were actually just kind of grinding some games out. And they've just gone on fire. They gave like 15 goals to 2 in their last 6 games. So they're hitting stride.
Well, and one thing I'm curious about from you, Hannah, is you went D1, you were playing in the Big 12, you were playing at Iowa State, a lot of pressure in those games, a lot of high stakes soccer, but Iowa State still is not a glamorous program. It's not similar to Minnesota, frankly, is not a glamorous program. They're not like the shiniest programs in the world. But that factor for BSU players is amplified times like a million. Mark had a show where Allie Smith said Bemidji State was the only program that offered her, and if she didn't get an offer, she just wasn't going to play soccer. And now she's like one of the program's best players of all time. And even underneath that, players like your sister, like Maggie, who's just a years-long contributor to this powerhouse scholarship level like soccer program. What are those players? There must just be just unbelievably massive chips on their shoulders of like, well, no one was even recruiting us. We can play really great soccer. Like, what the hell? Do they just sort of constantly have a low level of rage of like, F you guys, we can play. I don't know why people didn't think we could play. Like, what are those conversations like for players like that or for your sister?
I think that they definitely have like that little bit of chip on your shoulder, like you said, and then they just have such a baller work ethic. Like they're not having spoken to a lot of them, they don't carry like any entitlement, anything like that. And it's hard coming from clubs where we're preached when we were younger, like D1 or bust, and then these girls decide, hey, I'm going to go to this school. This school is making deep runs into the tournament. They're extremely good. And you know what? This program, frankly, would go out and beat a lot of Division I programs, or at least compete with them, which is really, really cool. And I think that a lot of kids growing up, they don't get to see that. That doesn't have the prestige that Division I does. But then I know, at least in my sister's experience here, she has absolutely loved it. She has thrived in this environment and with this team, this group of girls, and it's just really been helpful. And I know how close they are because they still have a lot of pressure on them, but Division I pressure and commitment and a lot of stuff, they kind of rule your life. Like you're very much following exactly what they want you to do at all times. Whereas here they get a little bit more freedoms, and that shows in how they play too. Like they're a team. They're a team first and foremost. They play so well together. The individuals aren't out there playing for themselves or anything. It is a team sport, and it is absolutely gorgeous to watch and see, and it's so cool. Like I love coming to these games. They're so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think it's just also the piece of like, you get to win so much. Like
Yeah.
I think
It does something for mentality sure.
we cover so many programs. I've been covering the Gophers forever. Mark covers the NSIC. We round up players who play for dozens and dozens of programs. It just isn't that common to win this much. Like win, to be on a winning team, and whether you're a small piece of it or a big piece of it, it's kind of wild. And I think even the coaches, frankly, in the NSIC talk about how even if they, quote unquote, wanted to go to the next level, they would have to go to really, really bad Division I programs. And right now they get to be really winning, really sort of well-crafted, D2 programs across Minnesota. And so it's so fun to see. Mark, it looks like we are still tied in the second overtime.
Yeah, 6 minutes left, 0-0 between Ferris State and Grand Valley State.
Yeah. Mark, is there any other stuff that we've seen from the NSIC teams? We want to lob anything else at Hannah? We have a big timer on set.
Well, I was going to ask you, Hannah, so like Emporia is unique. Like Bemidji, that Sarah Wendt will score, and that Allie will probably score, but it's a bit more balanced. With Emporia, it's like really focused on a couple of players. Like Mackenzie DeMarco's a forward with 22 goals in 23 games, and then they have another player with 12 goals, 7 assists, and they have a defender who has 10 assists. So I'm assuming Jenny Westcoat must take free kicks maybe with those type of stats. But when you're prepping for a new team, is there a benefit to knowing like these are the two people who turn the ball and we need to stop them, versus and you can focus on them? Or is it scarier to think, oh shit, no matter what, Mackenzie DeMarco is probably going to score on us because she has 60 goals in 66 college games?
That's insane.
That is a kooky number. That is a fake number.
Bravo to her, first of all. That's impressive. The talent. But no, I know playing, I personally prefer knowing like they're one or two key players. Who do we need to shut down? And like if we can shut them down, you know what? They're gonna have to defer out to other people that may or may not have the confidence that those players clearly have to be able to put up those kind of stats. So I would like knowing that.
Yeah. Well, and talking to who's going to face up against them, Bemidji State does have a really solid defense. I think they have the most shutouts of any team left in the country in D2. Dahl and Hallie Peterson were both all first team, all Central region as center defenders. And then, they just have a lot of experience shutting people down. So yeah, they'd probably like their odds, but I mean, look, I'd get a kick in for sure. Chop her up a little bit. Yeah, no disrespect, Mackenzie, but
Hannah's not as fluent in Mark's verbiage, so I'll let her know that what he's saying is he would literally kick the opposing attacker. Just slow her down.
Just don't do it in a bad spot.
It's a part of the game.
You gotta let her know that you're there.
Chop her up. And also, but shout out to Hannah Woolery she's a midfielder for the team who has 12 goals, 7 assists this year, and also 26 goals and 21 assists in 60 some college. So they have some really big impactful players. So yeah, no doubt Bemidji will be looking to shut them down as a priority because that's where it runs through. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys stay warm. Maybe they're selling some coffee or cider out there.
We are trying to rep the local brewery as well. This is Bemidji Brewing that we're drinking for pregame. Both of us, or just me. Either way,
it's a generous community action you're taking.
I'm really doing it for the community. This is for Bemidji. Mark and I grew up just about 40 minutes south of here, so obviously we're trying to rep Beltrami County hard, of course.
Yeah. I've got my Bemidji green on, and yeah, they're the last team in, so we can rep them. I'll say to anyone who is just sitting around in the cold thinking of soccer to watch, there are some D1 players left in the tournament too on ESPN Plus today. So scroll through Penn State, Notre Dame, Memphis, UNC, Minnesotans still in there. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mark. We'll get some post game coverage for folks. Otherwise, Mark will be on the live tweets for you.
All right. Stay warm. Thanks, guys.